Welcome to the Worship Leader Coaching Podcast, helping you go from leading songs to leading people. I'm your host, Caleb Holgerson. On this show, I talk with local church worship leaders about worship, leadership, creativity, and teamwork. We believe that by working together and learning from each other, we can build worshiping churches that are passionate about the presence of God. Let's get started. Well, hey, worship leaders, before we get started today, I want to tell you about something new I'm doing that's separate from worship leader coaching, but very much related to it. And don't worry, worship leader coaching is not going anywhere. I recently opened a small music store called Morris Guitar Company. Currently, we're online only with hopes to open a physical location in the future. We carry guitars, strings, and a handful of accessories. We're starting with just a few items, but more are on the way. I'd be grateful if you check out the website, morrisguitarcompany.com, and sign up for the email list there to keep up with what's going on. Also, from now through the month of May, because you listen to this podcast, you'll receive 10% off any order of $50 or more by using the code WLC10 at checkout. That's 10% off any order of $50 or more by using code WLC10 at checkout. I'm very excited about this new venture, and I hope I can help you find your next instrument. Now, let's get to today's interview. Well, y'all, today I'm hanging out with my new friend, Jesse Phillips. We actually connected on an Instagram Live, which is pretty fun. And he said, hey, we should hang out. And so we did. And then I said, you should come on my podcast, because that's what I do with friends now. I just invite them on my podcast. So, Jesse, how you doing, man?
I'm doing real well. How about yourself?
Doing well. It's good to hang a little bit and chat about worship and Jesus and life and whatever else we get into today. I wanted to have Jesse on because he's someone who I think follows his convictions and his beliefs, and I've gotten to hear a little bit about your story, and I'd love it if you just shared a little bit about yourself with our worship leader community here. We've got, a bunch of worship leaders listening, a bunch of musicians, kind of in and out of the worship world, but that's primarily where we focus. And I think you can add a lot to their lives. So if you would, just tell me a little about yourself, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on this podcast. It's an honor anytime I get to guest on something, and definitely the audience that will be listening to this is my people. So yeah, good to hang out with you guys today. Basically, I didn't really grow up in church. My family wasn't Christian until I was in middle school. And so as a kid, I didn't really have these great like Stephen Curtis Chapman songs to look back on and like every word of. But I did have this like weird pull to church music. I remember I grew up in Seattle, Washington. And so I was a big Seattle Seahawks. Well, I am a big Seattle Seahawks fan. But as I was waiting for games on Sunday mornings, a lot of times I would be flipping through channels, and I would stop on like Christian church services, or like those really old school ones with like organs and choirs. And I was like, what is this? And my dad would come in and be like, change the channel. What are you watching? And so we would watch Seahawks games together, but there's that little pull towards that music that I didn't even know was really in me. And so in 1999, my family moved to the Philippines, and it was so crazy because it's like, growing up in the States and moving to another country, it was just so weird. We were in the middle of a jungle. There are no Seahawks games. I like for five years, I was like reading in the newspaper, hoping that they would post something in the sports column about them.
Right.
So I was like so isolated from everything I knew. And it was there that like Jesus met my parents. Like he had like this thing where no one spoke English, and like only an American missionary pastor spoke it fluently, who was already there and wanted to meet us because we were American, and developed a friendship. And my parents both accepted Christ, and that's a whole story in itself. But we started going to church. They were like, we need a guitar player. You want to play? And I knew like E minor and G, like that was all.
Yes.
But I'm halfway there, like
That's right. That's right.
two more chords and I could play the library, the lexicon.
That's right. You can play any Hillsong with that, so you're good.
Yeah, maybe throw in an A minor every now and then, but
there you go.
Yeah. We're there, 40% to 50%.
That's right.
But anyway, yeah, I just plugged in with them at 11, 12 years old, not knowing what it was all about, and I found Jesus in the Philippines playing on a praise team, and
wow,
like it's just a crazy, looking back on it, it feels like another life. It just doesn't feel even like my life because things are so different. I live in Nashville now, and but anyway, that ministry call for me, even in high school, we moved back to the US for a couple of years so I could get transitioned to college, and wound up going to Liberty University and studying worship ministry there. So my undergrad was in worship, and it's funny how the calling was on my heart. I felt it. I went to school for it, but still there was this thing inside of me that was like getting tired of worship music. And I was like, I don't know if it's not super creative. It's not whatever. It's not super musical. And I had all these excuses in my head of like why I didn't really want to play it very much. I was like, I'll gladly play it at church, but once I graduate, I'm not going to do this full time. And so graduated, moved to Nashville, pursued, I guess a secular career path in music,
sure.
Which very quickly I realized was not what I wanted, and what I felt like I knew I needed. I was just like, I want to be a light in the darkness. I want to be, like a guy that brings life into the music industry. And quickly I realized I actually don't even like playing music if it's not for a purpose. Like I'm playing all these songs that like, these people at venues might be drinking a little too much and like really agreeing with these lyrics in their intoxicated states. And I'm like, man, I don't agree with any of these lyrics, and I'm here playing and nodding my head along with it, and I don't enjoy that. In fact, it takes the life out of me. And then I went through this series. I guess depression would be kind of because when you get what you asking for, what I mean? Like I got what I was asking for in playing music and doing it at a high level, doing it full time, doing it in Nashville. And it was like, man, this is not at all what I want. And so I just sought after God, and I moved back to Virginia to be around community. And it was there that I fell in love with worship music because of what it does to the church, because of what it does to people and their experience with God.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Talk about that a little bit. Just that, because I would imagine that's something, just that initial draw, you had as a little kid to waiting on a Seahawks game, what it does in people's lives and in the church. What are some of those things that you've seen as a worship leader, as a musician, that's happening in the lives of people? My air conditioner just popped on. Did you hear that?
Oh, no, we're good.
Okay, cool. Talk about that a little bit, kind of the what music does in the church. Yeah.
Well, first of all, it very quickly de-elevated my position when I went back to playing worship music. It settled the right order of what should be happening. So there is a stage, there are people playing music, but the bass player, the guitar player isn't what's on display. Like God is the focal point of both the band and the congregation coming together to sing together to God. And honestly, that in itself was enough for me to be like, there's something so much more in worship music than, any of the songs that I played while I was in Nashville. And granted, there's a place for secular music and things that aren't explicitly worship songs to God. Sure. I recognize that. And I grew up on a lot of that stuff as well. But kind of like the heart of the question, even like what is it doing in the hearts of people that I saw for the church? It's putting things in their right place, putting you in a position where you can be vulnerable before God, but also encourage those around you. It's just elevating who God is, and realizing where you should be in relation to that. And that was really, really what did it for me. It was when I moved back to Virginia, I was in this worship band, and we played for chapels at Liberty University. And there's a spiritual emphasis night, one of my first weeks back. It's kind of like this mini revival time where they have guest speakers come in, and it's a fun few days, but it's kind of the beginning of the semester. And my first little thing back, it was like my first time playing a show, and that's even calling it that, as my first time playing in front of people since I had moved from Nashville back to Virginia, and nobody cared that I was on the stage, and I loved it. It was like seeing people encounter God with these songs that we didn't write. They were, written by other people, and not that there's anything wrong with original songwriting, because those songs were original at one point.
Right.
But it was like, there's nothing of me that's happening right now other than being obedient to what God has called me to. And people are encountering God and being obedient to him as well. And just watching this, watching it from the stage, it was almost like I wasn't even playing, or I wasn't even in the room. It was just like, I get to encounter a living God that does things actively in people's hearts while this music is being played. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. That's what drew me to music in the first place, not the artistic expression or the cool chords you can play on guitar. It was what it does in the hearts of people. And so, that was kind of what really sealed the deal for me, is being at that spiritual emphasis week and being like, this is so powerful. This is way beyond what, a man or a record label or, whatever can build. It's it's eternal.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's cool. But talk about kind of that decision to leave Nashville and leave the kind of music scene that you were in, where you were traveling, right, and playing quite a bit. And because there's, you left because of your beliefs, it sounds like, but there's consequences to that, right? I mean, you didn't have a job anymore, I would think, or at least weren't doing music anymore. I mean, how hard of a transition was that to make, going from, living the dream that you kind of gone after, to saying, all right, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go back to Virginia. What was that like?
And it was really hard. I don't know if people are into the Enneagram thing. I'm not like a huge, I'm not huge into it. I just know that there are a couple things that have given me language to my personality, but I'm an achiever. I'm a 3. I'm a very goal-oriented person, efficiency, image, unfortunately, image driven. And so for me, there's so many things that had to break inside of me to be willing to go back to Liberty, basically. And I didn't originally intend to go back to school. I was just like, I need to figure out life and crash with some of my friends that were still there, and move into my old house again, and all that. So for me, that process kind of looked like reckoning with myself, what I wanted to do with my life. And I decided that my life wasn't really about achieving a goal, because I had achieved the highest goal that I had set for myself. Move to Nashville, play music, do this thing, with secular music, whatever, play for a band that's on a record label. Like it's, it was all there. Check mark, check mark, check mark. And I'd never been more miserable in my life. And finally that reckoning of like, what is it that I wanted to do with my life? it didn't look like any of the goals I had set for myself. And so even redefining what success looked like had to take place. And it's been a few years from that point of like defining what success looks like. And for me, it kind of had to change from a long-term thing to a short-term thing, saying I find success in being faithful to what God gives me every day. Like I can steward each moment, basically, is how I would say that.
Yeah.
And so in those times of transitioning from Nashville, it was like, okay, what I want my life to be like. I don't want to set a goal for myself. I want to experience God and be in relationship with him and let relationship drive my life.
Yeah.
And that kind of like brought me to thinking, okay, well, if I'm wanting out of Nashville, I should just go back to the community that I had and be around my church, be around my friends, and maybe have them speak into me some things. And it was really hard because a lot of me thought that people would view me as a failure for coming back from Nashville. They're like, oh, we thought you were supposed to make it big in Nashville, and here you are calling back. And honestly, no one thought that. It was like in my own head, I had built up this like image that I had to portray to my friends, and no one cared. And I was like, this is awesome. Like we're just hanging out again, and it felt great. And but it did take a lot of brokenness inside of me to be like, okay, I've come to the end of myself and what my best thinking achieves, and it's pretty awful. So submitting to what God would want is the better way. Just even for my own good, submitting to God is the better way. And that took, it took a little bit, but we got there. And I'm back in Nashville now. It was almost like I was on the right path. When I first signed up for Liberty and did worship, and then I came here to do secular music. I was like, veered off the path, found it back at Liberty, and then came back here with the like, okay, we're on the right path. I chose the right lane now, and
sure,
we're doing good.
Yeah. So when you went back to Liberty, what were some things that you were doing? I mean, I'm sure you went back and you were kind of, all right, what am I going to do now? I mean, what were some things you did to try to find that direction? And really, is there anything practically you did, day to day, or anything, as far as seeking God that you're, all right, God, how did you know what was the next step for you? How did God, direct your path at that point?
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. It's kind of a weird thing because I was at a point of complete surrender where literally I felt like every step was not my own decision. And so I had a completely open hand to say, God, I'm broken. So like, you take me, you do what you want with me. And then it was like, maybe I need to move back to Virginia, send a couple emails to my friends saying, hey, I'm thinking about coming back to Virginia. And then I get a phone call from one of my friends who's like, he was the worship pastor of Liberty at the time. He's like, hey man, heard you were thinking about moving back. Would you like to go to grad school and get a scholarship to be able to play in our band and get a scholarship to go to school again? I'm like, I hadn't even considered going back to school.
Right.
Sure. It's like, that sounds amazing. I have no idea what my next step is. Sure. And so all of a sudden I'm stepping into the season where I'm like, I'm going to be a student again, and play in this worship band 3 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever. And it was just such a weird time. And, I felt like every step that I was making was, just me saying, okay, from that one step of, I want you to lead me. Maybe you're saying to go back to Virginia. that was, I mean, honestly, that was like the snowball, the beginning of the snowball. That was just like, I mean, seriously, the momentum is felt until now. Like, that decision was made in early 2012. So I graduated in 2011, moved to Nashville in September of that year. And then it was probably around February or March that I was like, I know already that I've made the wrong choice. And it had just been a lonely 6-7 months of touring and then being home, and all my friends are touring. And but yeah, that moment of saying, okay, finally, after praying and after being like, something's just not right in my life, God, lead it. That feeling, maybe I should go back to Virginia, really did open up all those opportunities at Liberty again, and brought me back into community. So already I had something I was going to be doing, school, still music I was involved with. We also did an original CD and DVD back when DVD were a thing.
Right. What's that?
Yeah. We did these cassette tapes. No, it was a great time. I mean, it really was like God showed me like who he was, what he was capable of in my life that I thought I had to take the place of, where it's like, I know you say provider, but I feel like I have to be the one that provides for my life.
Yeah.
No, I can give you abundantly more than you thought you could give yourself, by giving you now I have a master's degree in business, and I got have it paid for by playing worship music, which showed me, where I'm supposed to be. And even on that creative team for that band, my wife was the graphic designer. And so I got to meet her. And now, it's like literally every piece of that decision to come back to school, or to come back to Virginia, led to school, the music led to even meeting my wife. And it was, so I guess obedience is like, but what it looked like, just saying, I don't know what to do. And then having the Holy Spirit in my open hand, place a thought and place the right thing. So,
yeah, that's good. Well, fast forward to now, what are you doing in Nashville? Obviously, you're back, but Virginia, I mean, that changed everything, going back to Virginia, and you moved back to Nashville, and what's happening? What are you doing?
Yeah. I'm pretty much doing worship music exclusively, in whatever capacity that looks like. So this week has been a lot of, remote tracking. I do a lot of, recording from my home. And so I'll do guitar and bass tracks for people, mainly worship musicians, because that's really my main circle of people. So doing a lot of that, which I don't know if you're releasing any of the video, but I apologize. Like my studio space is a wreck right now.
No, we'll probably just do audio, but some people might get a clip of this. So you might get,
well, yeah. I apologize for anyone who gets to see a clip of this. Then I also produce stuff. I've stepped more into that recently. I've always loved the recording process, and kind of avoided the producing thing because it's pretty competitive and people have a lot of opinions. And even in Christian music, it's like if you do something weird where they see your gear and it's not like the right thing, someone might be like, dude, you're really using that piece of gear, or, and so I avoided it because I was like, I just don't like that competition and that thought of, I just want to make good music and like all that. And so last year really kind of, again, I felt like this, just open up to it and see what happens. But I was contacted by a friend from Liberty who was like, we're doing a live, worship thing. We want you to produce it. And I was like, I can't say no to you. So I stepped into it, loved it. It was like, this is what I want to do again. Like I felt like that whole new, fresh, thing. And so their single just dropped on Friday. It's called Heaven's Coming Down.
Awesome.
The Watch Worship is the band's name, but
the Watch Worship.
Yep.
Very cool.
So they've got an EP coming out near the beginning or middle of May. And yeah, that was fun. And then had like another church contact me about doing like their live record, and then another church contact me.
Wow.
Like, okay, something's up with this. I just like, again, like in my best thinking, I'm not going to get in the way. So open hands, I'll field it as it comes. I'm not searching for it, but if I need to do something, I will. So that's kind of been my most recent thing. But I mean, kind of as a thread through all of it, I play bass at my church and for worship leaders. And so whether it's on a Sunday or traveling for a worship night, that's kind of been my main thing for since coming back from Nashville, since coming back to Virginia from Nashville in 2012. That's kind of been my thing, just playing for worship leaders and worship events. So
very cool. Awesome, man. Well, hey, if there's a worship leader listening that wants to record something for their church, can they reach out to you?
Totally. So I have so many email addresses for different things.
I get it.
Yeah. People could probably just send it to Jesse Dean Rivero at gmail.com. So JESSE DEAN RIVERO at gmail.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, guys, definitely do that. I hear from worship leaders periodically that are looking to, I hear from a lot of worship leaders that are looking to write. And then later on, I'll occasionally hear from one that goes, okay, we did something that we really want to put out there. And so, we'll send them your way. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on, man, and hanging out with us and sharing your story and your wisdom and just about your obedience and your faithfulness to God and God's faithfulness to you. That's always cool to hear. Something I ask just about everybody that comes on here is, what is your best piece of advice for a brand new worship leader that's listening to this? Somebody's been leading worship for less than a year. What do you have for them?
Yeah. So one of my worship professors, his name is Dr. Kreider, but he would always say, like, your personal holiness is what your congregation needs most. Because talent can get you to a place that your integrity can't sustain. And so he was like, your personal holiness is really what people need from you. And so, I mean, as far as practical advice, as far as all that, it kind of is wrapped up in that if you're seeking after God personally, a lot of things take care of themselves.
Yeah.
He'll lead you to practice. He'll lead you to prepare for your people. If you're praying for your bassist, like, you're probably going to want to equip him and resource him well. Yeah. Personal holiness. That's the advice.
That's good. No, that's awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. We've got, you mentioned your email a minute ago. Anywhere else people can find you or find what you're doing?
Yeah. Instagram, same as my email address, Jesse Dean Rivero. That's kind of like my hub. I also have like a website, jessedeanrivero.com or jesseplaysbass.com.
Gotcha.
Either will get you to the right spot. So
nice. Awesome. Well, we will link those in the show notes for anybody looking for that. And thanks for coming on. It's been great to have you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Worship Leader Coaching Podcast. For books, one-on-one coaching, and other resources, visit our website, worshipleader.me, or connect with us on Instagram @worshipleadercoaching.